Hey guys, so as I was doing the graphs for class, I figured that I would show you guys how I was doing this so that you can do this on your own. I didn't have the epiphany until after I started working on the heart rate. And this is a finished version. This one is for the respiratory rate for class, and you'll notice that I took all names off and I left them all with numbers. And then at the end, I took a class average, an average of the males, and then the average of the females. We do have 2 participants that are not available, which means they're either absent or I see that there's something wrong with the data that was entered, and so that's just not going to be available. And whenever I did the averages for these, I did not include this data set here, so the averages are still accurate. We can still look at the data itself. In class, I gave you 2 colored pencils. You can use any 2 colors that you want. You just need to make sure that you stay consistent across the board. And so for group A, you're going to need to set this up for yourself. And then we will look at the data points one Thursday, as long as we have school. And then we'll just do a conclusion based on, like, what does our respiratory rate do, what does our heart rate do, what does our temperature do when either from the resting state to the working state. And then after we discuss this, then we'll move on to our next chapter or unit, which is on diseases. So in order to do this, we have our data points here, and we labeled, of course, with gender, and then we went across and did all this stuff. Now green on the paper is resting, while yellow on the paper is working. And we didn't use these exact color setups with our colored pencils because the yellow wouldn't have shown up as well, and I couldn't scan that for those that were absent. So we switched them to purple, purple and red. Right, so it's actually purple here, and then this one's red. Okay. So what I did was, you'll notice on your printout that also it's color coded for male and female. Female is a peach color, while male is a brighter orange or a yellow, depends on how this shows up on the camera. And that helps me to visually organize the data automatically so that I don't have to make a separate table just for males and females. Like whenever I go to set up for the averages, I can just go down through and add up the averages for females and the averages for males. So what I'm doing as I go through this is I'm going down line by line, and you'll notice that for our names, I gave them a number so that whenever we look at our data points, that there is nothing that we can identify a person by other than participant number. And I went a step further and didn't include gender as well. So anybody looking at this, and especially watching this video for medical detectives, won't be able to identify you. So don't worry about your data points being placed on here. So for this, so what I'm doing is each person has 2 spaces, and each space dictates a piece on the bar graph. And I'm starting with the resting heart rate on this one. You can go through and do both at the same time. That's what I did with this one, but I think it's going to take a little less time for me to do it one color at a time, because then after I put all the bar graphs in, then we can go in and we can color the bars. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm looking at the actual data set. So right now we're on participant 8, and participant 8 is here. Their resting heart rate was 100. So then we go over here to this chart, we go up the side, and we find 100, and we go across, and then using our ruler, you're going to mark it here at the 100, and then drag it all the way down like this. And then for further ease of reading, I'm putting very small that data number so that visually very quickly you can read this. Otherwise you'd have to scroll across or look across and try to find the number, and this graph goes across the whole sheet of paper, so that's why I'm putting the numbers across there. All right, the next one is 9, and that resting heart rate is 100. So this one again, we can just go across and mark it. And leaving our data points at the top. Right, for number 10, our heart rate was 92. So we are going to find 95 and go down less than half here. And then draw your line straight down. It's easier if your pencil is sharp enough. This one's just barely sharp enough for me to get those clean lines, but I'm not too worried about it right now because I'm almost done, and then also I'll be coloring with this, and it won't matter if it's a little dull. All right, so for number 11, for participant 11, we have a heart rate of 70. So we go across here and map it here. Now, could we combine all of the data together onto one bar graph? Yes, we could. That's perfectly doable. However, for space-wise, and then also to just look at each thing individually, close enough, we would see it to be too cluttered. Now, when we get done with all the graphs, what we're going to do in class, if we have time, is then we will take the class averages and the male and female class averages, and we'll take these for resting and non-resting, and we'll combine it onto one table itself, because then it'd be easier to look at that as a whole. All right, so number 12, we have 100. Number 13, 94, so we go down to 95, and go down by a little notch. Oops. There we go, we can just do it that way. My light turned off in my room. We'll just turn the flash on, it'll be perfectly fine. In fact, actually, I think you guys can see this a lot better anyway. So it worked out. All right, so then for number 14, our last one, the heart rate resting was 89. So then we go across, we find our 90 here, and just go down by a notch. And then draw your line straight down. And then leave your number for 89. Now for the class average, what we're going to be looking at is that we're going to average out everybody all together, all of these data points all the way across. So when you do this in the calculator, which I'm pulling up, is that you want to put in all the data points together and then divide it by however many participants. So if you notice for the one with our heart rates, or our respiratory rates rather, we had 2 data points that weren't complete, and with those we would omit that number completely. We wouldn't divide it by the full number, we'd just divide it by however many points of data that we would have. Alright, so on my calculator I'm putting in these figures. So we have 102, adding 94 plus 54 plus 68 plus 69 plus 70 plus 90 plus 100 plus 100 plus 92 plus 70 plus 100 plus 94 plus 90, 89. Then with that number, we're then going to divide by 14, because that's the total number, and we get an average of 85.1. So So we're going to find 85. And because our pencil is thick enough, it'll count for that 0.1. That's why we write the figures at the top. This is so that it counts for any weird decimals that we wouldn't be able to really replicate very well. Right, so that is the average for the class average. So of all the data points, we have a rough average of 85.1. And then we are going to take our information and we're going to average out the males and the females. So then I'm going to go back into the calculator, and now instead of doing all of them, I'm only going to add up the males. So we have 69, 70, 100 and 100, another 100, 94 and 89. And then we're going to be dividing by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which gives us a rounded up total of 88.9. 88.9. So we're going to come up here. This is 90. So we're going to come down by the notch. Draw that line straight down. 88, and then put our total up here, 88.9. And then we're going to then do the same thing with the female group. So we're going to add in, right, 102, 94, 54, 68, 90, 92, and 70. And just like we did with the males, we are going to divide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's going to be 81.4. So here we have 80, just drag across, draw a straight line down, we've got 81.4. So once we have all these data points, then we can go in and we can color in our bars. You want to make sure it's nice and solid, especially if you're going to scan something, so that the color picks up well. Doesn't get a lot of white space. You don't need to press too hard, just to make sure that you have the color filled in. So we are going to time lapse this so that for our time's sake, for the video, we have things done. So I'm going to do the first 4, and then we're going to time warp to all of them being done. And you can pause this video to catch yourself up. Alright, so we have all of our bars colored in, and now we're going to need to do the working heart rate, and we're going to do the same exact procedure that we just did with that resting heart rate. So we're going to be looking, instead of this column, we're going to be looking at this column instead. So for participant 1, and we're also going to be switching colors, so I'm going to be using purple, and I'm going to go and sharpen this really quick because this one is duller than the other. Alright, so you're going to notice a considerable difference whenever you use a very sharpened pencil in comparison to one that is dull, especially when drawing your lines. So for this first participant, we have 112. This one's going to go up to this notch here. Alright, 112. We're going to put our total up here. 112. Our second participant has the resting working heart rate of, they say, 86. Participant 3 has a working heart rate rather, 65. The 4th has the working heart rate of 66. Number 5, 88. Now you'll notice that for this is all about preference. You can easily draw your line completely down like this, right? Just like this, and then go. But because it's in between these two bars, I know I'm just going to be coloring that in, so I don't need to draw that down. So you'll notice whenever I do these, I just draw down to where it meets the red. Or if it's in between the red, then I just notch it. So for participant number 6, we have no data. So this one's going to be no data, absent. So this student was not here, so we're not going to even really look at their data points for the working heart rate. So for the 7th one, we have 101.3. Here's our 100 line, and here's that. For number 8, we have 108.6, 10. So what this class did is that we took an average, so that's why we're getting decimal points. Next one, we have 96.6. Tenth, 126. So this one goes off the chart. You want to try and avoid that, but for space reasons and for the data points on the other graph, we use the same type of bar graph, so it just goes ahead and runs up here. We want to put 126 for this, and it just barely goes above that anyway, so it should be fine when we this one here. We have 116.6. So it's going to be here. Number 12 has 114. Number 13, 112. And then 14, we have 110. Now for our class average, we're going to do the same thing. We are going to add up all the totals and then divide them by the actual total. So here we have this. We're going to go down through. We're going to add in 112 plus 86 plus 65 plus 66 plus 88. Skip that one. We have 108.6, 96.6, 126, 16.6, 14, 112, 110. They're going to divide that by our total number of participants. For our case, it's 14, and that gives us a, or no, I'm sorry, it'd be 13, because remember we're omitting this one right here. So I'm going to take my total and rehash that, and divide by, instead, 13. There we go, that's better. It's going to be 100.1. 100.1. 95, 100. And then for our males, then we're going to go through and we're only going to measure or take the averages of the males, which this class, we're really lucky, is completely even. So if the student would have been here, we would have had even numbers. So it's going to be divided by 6, which gives us 61.6. 61.6. Which, if I were to look at that again, that is not correct. Always double check. If it looks like, if your average is lower than the majority of, your average shouldn't be lower than your lowest point on here. So we're going to go ahead and re-put that in there. So my I must have missed a button on my calculator. Let's go ahead and try that again. And divide by 6. That's a better number. It's 121.8. 121.8. 100, 5, 10, 15, 20. And now we're going to do the same with the female. So I think what happened was I was looking either at the wrong table or column rather, or I was looking at the females and males combined, but not all at once. So now we're going to add in the females. And divide by 7, which gives us 96.12. So now we're going to do the same thing that we did over here. We're going to color these in, and we'll color in the first few, and then we're going to time warp to a colored in table. So you can pause this video at any time to catch up. So here you can see what I mean by we didn't need to draw the lines down here. It automatically fills in. So we have warped to a completed table. So if we visually look at this, we see number data, we see color data, but the colors and the different colors and things help us visualize a lot easier than just looking at the number data here, because we can go through this number data and we can say, well, this here, it goes down through, and you see this is the highest, the lowest, but it would take us a lot more time. So a chart and a graph helps in looking at data easier and in a quicker manner. And some people are just better able to visually see things through colors and shapes rather than just with numbers and text. So here we have the two completed ones. This is heart rate, and this one is your respiratory rate. And we have one more to do, which is our temperatures. And so we'll go ahead and set up that table. And to set it up, it's not like your regular blueprints. You don't need to do borders and all that fun stuff because we're just going to draw it straight in. So we're going to go 20 down, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more. 19, 20, as I say. I thought I was off by a hair. Alright, so we're wanting to match this up. And because of our data sets, we're going to go ahead and go down 2 more. I want it to match. Okay, and then we're going to go straight across. And this one we have 14 points of data, which will be 28 squares total, plus our other 3 at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Class average, male, female. And we're going to divide these off like this. So I skip 2 for each one because I designate a square column per piece of information. Right, so this would be resting, this would be working. So we put our numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Class average, male average, female average. Start down here at 0, and then when we go to set up our numbers, we want to look at overall temperatures, and they're the normal ranges. So I think I'm going to make this a little different compared to the other. We don't have as wide a range of numbers. So we look at our lowest number, which is 96.8 on this one. Then we look for our highest number, which is 100.8. Whew. And so what we're going to do is we go here, we're going to do a little squiggly. This squiggly says that we're breaking up the data. We're going from 0 to a big number. It's like we took the graph and xylophoned it out. So I'm actually going to start from 90 and work my way up. So we're going to go 90. And since it's 100, we'll go 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 110. So for this one, we could have made the graph a little smaller, but for our intents and purposes, we're not going to worry too much on that. So if you're using pencil, you can just erase that line, but because I'm using pen, I can't really erase it, but we can do this. So you erase on your end, and I will, in theory, erase on my end. All right, so I'm going to white this out. I don't see it anymore. Okay. And one more. go. Let's clean up our graph area. There we go. So when I go to scan that, you're not going to really be able to see that, so it won't be too bad. So now we're going to go across like we did before, and we're going to look at temperature, which we're going to use the red pen for, and then we'll use the purple the other. So I'm keeping my colors consistent as we go through the data points, because I want to be able to just be able to look at all three and be able to identify exactly what I'm looking at without looking at different legends. So this is resting temperature. And this is working. And this is working temperature. So 4 hour temperature for first one, our temperature was 98.4. Put your data points at the top. And then we have 99.2. Three, we have can't read it. 98. The next one's 98 as well. So we have two 98s in a row. 98, 98. Next, 98.6, 98.4. We have another 98. I'm going to go sharpen my pencil. Thought I could at least get the lines in. For number 8, we have 97.5. Or this is actually 0.6. So this other one's 97.5. Ninth one, 97.8. Alright, so just for time's sake for the video, what I went and did was I just filled in the chart just like I did before. I went down through the data points and then filled those in. So for this next part, we're going to do the average, which we're going to add up all these numbers. So 98.4 plus 99.2. Then we have 98 plus 98. It's 98.6 plus 98.4. 98.6. 97.5. 97.8, 97.3, 96.3, 98.6, 98.4, and then 97.5, which gives us 1372.6, and we're going to divide by 14, which gives us 98.04. We're going to be looking at the male average. So we're going to go down through just like we did before. And find a temperature. 98.6 plus 98.4, 97.5, 97.8, 98.6, 98.4, and then 97.5. Just that, and divide by 7. Gives us 98.1. And we're going to do the same thing with females, and that is going to be 98.4, 99.2, 298, 98.6, 97.3, 96.3, and then 97.3, sorry. Divide that by 7 gives us not the right amount here. Calculator messed up here. 97.4, 99.2, 98 plus 98, 98.6. Might have missed the decimal point here because it gave me a number that was way too large. Divided by 7. That's better. 98 even. So just like before, we're gonna time lapse this. It's gonna jump ahead for you, but I'm gonna color in all these, and you can pause the video if you need to catch up. All right, so we just time warped ahead, and we went ahead and put our resting temperatures in. I colored in the bars. The next step, which we'll time warp again, is that we're going to put in our temperatures where we were being very active, and then we'll see if we see any differences. And again, I'm using the same colors. All right, so I went ahead and filled in all the data points, and we're just going to be coloring these in. As feedback for this, if I were to do this graph again for improvement, I think for the temperature wise, because there's decimals, I would put the total in here so we could see it instead of putting the number on top like our other tables. I feel like then it would be neater. As we fill in the data and as we interpret this, we need to also remember that we are not trained medical professionals, and so the data may show some user error, so we can't just make an immediate diagnosis based on our data points.